What is going on, my fellow Aleo community members? This is your lovely community manager, Anthony, speaking here today. And what I want to do with this video is walk you through steps A to Z for running a mining node on the Aleo Incentivized Testnet. Before I begin, I just want to preface this by saying all of the instructions for running a mining node can be found on the README document within our SnarkOS GitHub repo. So if you look at my screen right here, you can see I'm already navigated to this page. And here you can find details about requirements, minimum requirements for running a node, installation processes, and actually running the node in your terminal. So I would suggest using this as a resource, but I will also be sharing this video so that you can actually see a full walkthrough. So without further ado, I'm going to open up my terminal here. Now, I should preface this by saying I personally am using a cloud provider for server access. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm actually going to SSH into my server. So I'm going to do that really quickly right here. Just have to type in password on my Mac. Great, so now I am inside of my server resources. Now for you, whether you're using a server or physical hardware, it doesn't matter, but you should make sure you have everything set up and ready to go before you begin. And I guess just to reiterate on minimum requirements, we're looking for a CPU that's 16 cores minimum, 32 cores is preferred, RAM of 16 gigabytes of memory, 32 gigabytes preferred. Storage should be 120 gigabytes of disk space, and network should be a minimum of 50 megabits per second of upload and download bandwidth. We actually had a community call earlier today, and it was discussed that having 1 gigabyte of upload and download bandwidth might actually be much better to have. So, minimum 50 megabits per second, but the more you can get, the better. Okay, so now that I am inside of my server, the first thing I'm going to want to do is I'm going to clone the SnarkOS GitHub repository. So you can do that by typing this command here. Again, all this can be found on the GitHub repo for SnarkOS. Okay, so once that is cloned, the next thing that I will want to do is I want to change directories into SnarkOS. Now, the first thing that I want to mention here is that when you cd into SnarkOS and you do this, make sure that you capitalize the O and the S in SnarkOS. The directory for SnarkOS has the OS capitalized. For the command SnarkOS, which you'll see later in this video, it's all lowercase. So that is something important to notice. I made that mistake earlier, but you should make sure to try and avoid that. Okay, so now we are in SnarkOS. And the next thing I'm going to do, so I'm using Ubuntu. So I'm actually going to run a helper script to install dependencies that are available, and I'm going to do this from the SnarkOS directory. Again, if you're an Ubuntu user, I recommend doing this. If not, you can skip this part altogether, but I'm going to go ahead and do that. So this is going to take a bit of time here. So we'll just let this run through. And yeah, once it's complete, I will jump to the next part of the video. Okay, perfect. We are back. So what just occurred is that I ran this helper script to install some dependencies available for Ubuntu. And now that that's done, you'll see that, again, I'm still in the Snark OS directory. And the next step in this process is you will want to generate a private key, a view key, and an Aleo address, which will be required in order for you to actually start mining and to receive the testnet tokens. Now, the first thing you want to do is you'll want to type this command source -rc. And essentially what we're doing here is we're going to be updating the -rc file in order to run Snark OS. I'm going to do that. And then what you'll want to do is you'll want to type in this command here, which is called Snark OS experimental new account. And this should generate your private key, view key, and Aleo address, as I just mentioned. And the important thing here is once this information is generated, you want to make sure to store it in a secure location. If you do not store this in a secure location and you forget it, then we will be unable to reward you your Aleo credits, which are redeemable from the testnet tokens that you receive. And the reason being is you need some way to prove that the blocks you mined in association with a specific Aleo address in fact belong to you. Okay, so when we do that, you can see that these 3 items were generated. I blacked this out because I obviously don't want you to see what my private key is. But for all of you watching, that is what you should be doing. So I'm going to copy this in a secure location, just so I have it. Okay, now, once the private key, view key, and address are generated, the next thing that you want to do is you actually want to run the mining node. Now, my suggestion would be to run the mining node in a separate screen. And the reason for that is by opening up a new screen, you're actually creating this background process, which allows you to run your mining node, even if you close down your terminal, right? So if you're using a cloud provider, this would actually make the most sense because you want to make sure that while you're mining, you don't, end the program or anything like that. So what we'll do is you just type screen and then hit the enter key. And then you can hit enter again. Okay, and then you can see, all right, now I'm in this screen and I'm still SSH'd into my server in the Snark OS directory. And for those of you that are running a mining node, you'll want to run this run -miner sh command. And it's important that you run this command or the associated command for running a client node, right? Depending on if you're running a client node or a miner, most of you will probably be running a miner because that's the only way you can actually receive credits on the testnet. But when you run this command, essentially what you're doing is you are positioning yourself such that whenever the network restarts or there's updates, this will automatically update your miner and restart without you having to do anything. So it's really important that you actually run this command. So we'll go ahead and hit run, and then it's going to ask you for your Aleo address, which I will copy and paste right here. Okay, and this was the address that was just generated earlier. And once you do that, you hit enter, and your node should start running. So let's make sure everything compiles here. Okay, and now you can see that my miner is running. So since I just booted up this mining node, it is going to take some time to actually get caught up to the most recent block. But as we've mentioned, in some of our other announcements, the testnet will be resetting at some point, but as long as you're running the script for run miner, then you won't have to worry about doing anything, and you'll automatically, you know, be updated along with the network when things do reset and we start at block 0 once incentives kick in. So now that this is running, the next thing that I want to share is if you are in this screen, like we did before, if you want to get out of it and go back to your terminal, you can just type Control A and then D. And it'll take you back to your terminal. Again, since we're running this screen in the background, the miner is still running. So even if we exit terminal, it should be fine. But if you want to go back to screen, you can type the command. Well, first, if you want, you can type the command screen -list. This will show you if you're running multiple screens. Obviously, you can see this is the one that I'm running that we were just in. Then if you want to re-enter it, you can just go to screen -R, and then you can type specific one. And as you can see, we are back in the screen mode, and we can see the miner running. Now you will notice this pop-up, it says Aleo Testnet 2 incentivization period. This is a note that pops up every 60 seconds, just informing you that there will be an update and a new protocol bump. So things will reset at some point. So you should just be aware of that. And yeah, I guess that's mainly it for this session. So probably just go back to my terminal here. But yeah, so that's essentially what you need to know for running a mining node. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us on Discord. We're happy to assist you in any way we can. But for all intents and purposes, this is all you really need to do in order to run a mining node on the network. So with that, I'll end the video here, and very much looking forward to seeing how well all of you perform once we kick in the incentives. So good luck and happy mining.